Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to getting genuinely well-informed. Today, we are really digging into something that's been making waves less like a traditional book launch and maybe more like a political event in itself. I'm talking about the massive initial success of former Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign memoir, 107 Days.
Yeah, it's definitely caught a lot of attention.
The whole story around this book, it's pretty fascinating, isn't it? Because it's like this commercial blockbuster that just sprang out of, well, political chaos. When you look at the reports, I mean, this thing isn't just selling well. It rocketed off the shelves. There was this, unprecedented rush.
Absolutely.
And that specific kind of success, capturing such a turbulent moment, I think it tells us a lot about what the public is looking for right now.
It really does. The sheer scale of the launch, it confirms people are incredibly eager to understand the inside story. I mean, the most condensed presidential run in modern history. People want to know what happened. So our mission today, it's pretty clear. We need to go beyond just the headline numbers, impressive as they are, the ones from Simon & Schuster.
Right.
We need to unpack what those sales really mean, connect it back to that really unique political timeline, the campaign itself.
And maybe put it in perspective.
Exactly. Use some historical benchmarks. Is this just a flash in the pan, a sort of political moment, or are we looking at a genuine publishing giant here?
Okay, let's start right there. With the hard numbers, everyone's talking about them. What did Simon & Schuster actually report for that first week? We need to get a sense of the scale.
Okay, the initial figures, they were, commercially they were pretty definitive. 107 days, sold 350,000 copies first week.
350,000. Wow.
And it's important, really crucial to note that figure is comprehensive. It includes print copies, ebooks, and audiobooks. So demand across all formats right out of the gate.
350,000 in 7 days. That is just huge, particularly for a political book that's basically recounting an election that, ultimately wasn't successful.
Yeah.
What does that number immediately signal to the publishing world?
Well, it tells them they've likely got a historic contender on their hands. And what's really fascinating here is the projection the publisher is already making.
Which is?
Simon & Schuster is already saying publicly they expect 107 Days to be the top political book of 2025.
Okay, wait. Hold on. The top political book for the entire year, based on 1 week of sales. Isn't there some marketing hype baked into that analysis?
Look, there's always going to be an element of hype. You're right about that. But the production schedule seems to back up their confidence.
How so?
Well, the reports we looked at, they noted the book's already been rushed into a fifth printing.
Fifth printing already?
Yeah, which means they're quickly bringing the total number of hardcover copies in print up to 500,000, 500,000.
Wow, okay. That's a serious commitment.
It's a massive commitment. Capital, resources, everything. It suggests they don't see this as just a one-week wonder, but something with, sustained legs. They're printing 500,000 physical books because they seem to believe the interest is there for the long haul. It signals this initial success might actually put Harris's book up there with, some historic bestsellers.
Okay, these sales numbers are clearly enormous. But what are people actually buying here? They're obviously captivated by this specific period, which brings up the big question. Why 107 days? Let's unpack what those 107 days actually represent, politically speaking.
Right. The title is absolutely central. It's the key to the whole narrative the book is trying to shape. It covers that very specific, very condensed time frame of the unexpected 107-day 2024 presidential campaign. It's framing it as a book defined by a political sprint, not the usual marathon.
And the catalyst, the reason that sprint was even necessary, was President Biden's late and pretty unexpected withdrawal from the race.
Precisely. The core context, the sources really emphasize this, is Biden dropping out on July 21st, 2024.
Mm-hmm.
That timing is it's everything. It came less than a month after that, that infamous debate against Donald Trump, June 27th.
Yeah, we don't need to rehash the whole debate. I think our audience remembers the fallout, the former president's performance, the concerns about, slowness, confusion, issues many tied to age. It made his candidacy seem problematic almost immediately.
Right.
The critical point here is the timing of his exit, late July.
Absolutely. That timing is what created the 107 days. The sources, they detail some of the internal political scrambling happening right before Biden withdrew. The Democratic Party was basically debating if they could even throw together a primary process that late in the game.
Right. Was it even feasible?
Exactly. And the date, July 21st, combined with how little time was left before Election Day in November, it basically made a contested primary impossible.
So Vice President Harris became the nominee almost, by default, or necessity.
By necessity seems like the word. And the book, therefore, it's recounting the massive effort to launch a full-scale presidential campaign in, what, barely 3 months.
Just think about that pressure. I mean, the book isn't really a memoir of achievement in the traditional sense, is it? It's more like an explanation of this impossible pivot under extreme time pressure.
That's a really good way to put it. That's the analytical takeaway. It's not just a memoir. It's kind of the political establishment's first big attempt to document how that 3-month sprint unfolded. And maybe why, despite all that effort, the result was still a loss.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Connecting that huge commercial success, those 350,000 sales, the packed book tours we're hearing about, connecting that back to the political substance. How has the book actually been received by people inside the Democratic Party? Because it feels like there might be a disconnect there between the public buying it and her political peers.
Yeah, there is a definite duality here. And this is what makes the book more of a, let's say, a political document than just a historical record right now. On the public side, you've got the robust sales, the packed appearances. That clearly shows intense curiosity, maybe even a demonstration of ongoing political support from some quarters. The general public is definitely engaged with the story she's telling.
The sources we looked at make it really clear that the book has also generated some friction. It's not like it's a universally accepted account, even within her own party.
That's absolutely essential context. While Harris is, putting her version of events out there for the public, there has been documented internal criticism within the Democratic Party.
Okay.
This dissent, it seems to be pushing back against some of the specific claims or maybe the perspectives, the implied narratives Harris presents in the book about why 2024 didn't work out.
So the massive demand for the book seems driven by this hunger for the inside scoop on all that political chaos.
Yeah.
But that chaos is still politically active, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got this commercially successful book that's also kind of a lightning rod for internal party debate.
Exactly.
So the question for you, the listener, maybe, is this book functioning mainly as a political campaign document, setting the record straight for maybe future runs? Or is it purely a historical look back at 2024?
And the answer to that probably dictates its longevity, right?
Yeah.
If we try and connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
how does this really incredible initial launch stack up against, say, the gold standard for political memoirs? We need some perspective on the sheer scale.
Right. When you talk about the benchmark in this space, there's really only one name that comes up immediately, isn't there? Michelle Obama's 2018 memoir, Becoming.
That's the one.
That book is, it's widely seen as the most read political memoir of all time.
Yeah.
It really set the standard for global reach, cultural impact.
And just to really let you grasp the kind of target 107 days might be chasing long term, consider this. Becoming sold over 8 million copies globally. 8 million. That's the ultimate long-term measure of success and, enduring influence in this whole genre.
And crucially, the themes were fundamentally different, weren't they? Which has to impact the potential for longevity. Becoming was this deep dive, almost a celebration, covering identity, race, ambition, family, public service, over 8 years of a very successful presidency.
Yeah.
It was a memoir of identity built over a long time, kind of a victory lap. In a way.
Exactly. Whereas 107 days is, well, it's literally an explanation for a loss that happened after just 3 months of campaigning.
Very different propositions.
Totally different. Obama's book had this depth and scope that resonated way beyond just politics, didn't it? It achieved real cultural stars. Harris's book, right now, it's succeeding because of its immediate political urgency, its timeliness. People need to understand what just happened in 2024. The challenge for 107 days is whether it can translate that immediate political hunger into the same kind of enduring global cultural influence that Becoming managed. That's the big question mark. So summing up, what we've seen is a commercially massive launch for 107 days, 350,000 copies sold week 1. That's leading to this huge commitment, the 5th printing, 500,000 hardcovers, and the publisher projecting it as the top political book for 2025.
Big claims.
Big claims,
right?
Reflecting intense public interest in those very specific, very condensed, frankly chaotic political events of mid-2024, and of course the necessity of the 107-day campaign itself.
So what does it all mean when we think about the history books? Well, the initial sales are just staggering. They clearly suggest historic potential, commercially at least. But that unique political context, you just can't escape it, can you? It covers a failed election bid, a very late start, and it already has this internal political criticism attached to its narrative. It's designed, fundamentally, to explain a loss, not celebrate a win.
Yeah.
The success of that first week, it's undeniable. But here's a final thought, maybe something provocative for you to ponder, building on that tension we just discussed. Given the book's intense, immediate political urgency and knowing about that documented internal criticism, will the content of 107 Days actually achieve the same broad, enduring global influence and sheer longevity as books like Michelle Obama's Becoming? Or is this spectacular initial rush purely a reflection of a really dramatic but maybe short-lived political moment that peaked back in mid-2024? That's something for you to chew on as you continue your own deep dive. Thanks for listening.